sun dipped low over the horizon, casting a golden glow across the sprawling vineyard that stretched beyond the windows of the old stone house. Alina sat at the worn oak table, her fingers tracing the rim of a half-empty wine glass. At 34, she was a vision of quiet elegance, long dark hair cascading over her shoulders, green eyes that shimmered with secrets, and a face that held the kind of beauty that deepened with time. Her husband, Daniel, sat across from her, his broad shoulders hunched over a stack of papers. He was a man of routine, a winemaker whose life revolved around the seasons and the soil. 15 years of marriage had woven them together, but the threads were fraying. Before we jump in, real quick, most of you who enjoy these videos still haven't subscribed. If you're one of them, please take a second to hit that button. It helps with channel growth so much and means more than you know. And if you're already subscribed, thank you. Now, let's begin. Do you ever wonder, Alina began, her voice soft but deliberate, what we'd be doing if we hadn't settled here? Daniel didn't look up. Same thing, different place, he muttered, scribbling a note about the latest harvest. His dark hair was streaked with gray, his hands rough from years of labor. He was dependable, solid, everything a husband should be. But lately, Alina felt like she was shouting into a void. He stood, smoothing her navy blouse, and walked to the window. The vineyard was their life, their legacy. They built it from nothing, turning a patch of rocky land into a thriving business. But somewhere along the way, Alina had lost herself. She didn't know when it started. Maybe it was the endless days blending into nights, or the way Daniel's touch had become perfunctory, like checking a box on a list. She loved him, she told herself. She had to. Next morning, a delivery truck rumbled up the dirt road. A man stepped out, tall and lean, with a mop of unruly black hair and a smile that seemed to catch the sunlight. His name was Luca, a traveling photographer hired to document the vineyard for a magazine feature. He carried a camera slung over his shoulder and a leather satchel stuffed with lenses. When he shook Alina's hand, his grip lingered a moment too long, and his hazel eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Beautiful place," Luca said, gesturing to the rows of vines. "I've seen a lot of vineyards, but this one's got soul." Alina smiled, feeling a flush creep up her neck. "Thank you. It's been a labor of love." Daniel emerged from the house, wiping his hands on a rag. He nodded at Luca, gruff but polite, and the two men exchanged small talk about the weather and the harvest. Alina watched them, her mind drifting. Luca's voice was warm, melodic, a stark contrast to Daniel's clipped tones. She shook the thought away. She was married. Happily, she reminded herself. For the next few days, Luca became a fixture at the vineyard. He'd wander the rows, snapping photos of the grapes, the barrels, the house. Alina found herself drawn to him, offering to guide him through the property. They'd walk side by side, her pointing out the oldest vines, him asking questions that went beyond the surface, about her dreams, her childhood, the things she'd buried under the weight of duty. Daniel noticed, but said nothing. He trusted her. She was his wife. One afternoon, a storm rolled in, sudden and fierce. Rain pounded the earth, and Luca dashed into the barn where Alina was stacking crates. His shirt clung to his chest, soaked through, and his hair dripped onto the wooden floor. She laughed, handing him a towel, and their fingers brushed. The air crackled, not from the thunder outside, but from something unspoken between them. "You're not like anyone I've met," Luca said, his voice low. He stepped closer, the towel forgotten in his hand. "There's a fire in you, Alina, I see it." Her heart pounded. She should have stepped back, said something to break the moment. But she didn't. Instead, she let him close the distance, let his lips find hers. The kiss was electric, a collision of longing and guilt. She pulled away, breathless, her mind screaming at her to stop. But her body didn't listen. They met again the next day, and the day after that. In the barn, behind the rows of vines, in the shadows where no one could see. It wasn't love, Alina told herself. It was a spark, a fleeting rebellion against the monotony of her life. Luca was a wanderer, a man who'd leave when the job was done. She could handle this. She could keep it separate. But then came the twist she never saw coming. One evening, as the sun sank below the hills, Daniel called her into the kitchen. His face was pale, his hands trembling. On the table lay a stack of photographs, black and white shots of the vineyard, the house, her. And there, in crisp detail, was a picture of her and Luca, tangled together in the barn, their bodies pressed close. Alina's stomach dropped. "I found these in his satchel," Daniel said, his voice breaking. "He left it behind today. I wasn't snooping, I swear." It fell open. Alina opened her mouth, but no words came. The betrayal in Daniel's eyes was a knife to her chest. She'd been careless, reckless, and now the man she'd vowed to love was staring at her like she was a stranger. "Why?" Daniel asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," she lied. She did know. She wanted to feel alive, to escape the cage of their predictable life. But she couldn't say that. Not to him. Daniel stood, packing the room. "I thought we were enough. I thought I was enough." "You are," she said, reaching for him. He pulled away. "I need time," he said, and walked out into the night. Alina sank to the floor, the photographs scattered around her. She'd ruined everything for what? A fleeting thrill? She waited for Daniel to return, but he didn't. Hours turned into days. The vineyard felt empty without him, the silence suffocating. Luca came by the next morning, oblivious to the storm he'd unleashed. "Hey," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "Missed you yesterday." "Get out," Alina snapped, her voice raw. "You've done enough." He frowned, confused. "What's wrong?" She shoved the photos at him. "You kept these. Why?" Luca's face paled. "I wasn't going to show anyone. They're art, a moment captured. I didn't mean." "Leave," she said, cutting him off. He hesitated, then grabbed his satchel and walked away. Days bled into weeks. Daniel stayed at a friend's house in town, refusing her calls. Alina threw herself into the vineyard, working until her hands bled, trying to drown the guilt. She wrote him letters, pages of apologies, promises, truths she'd never dared speak. She didn't know if he read them. One night, as frost kissed the vines, headlights cut through the darkness. Daniel stepped out of his truck, his face unreadable. Alina met him at the door, her heart in her throat. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice steady but distant. "About us, about what happened." "I'm so sorry," she whispered, tears spilling over. "I was lost. I don't know why I did it." He looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in weeks. "I don't know if I can forgive you. Not yet. But I don't want to lose what we've built. Not over him." She nodded, hope flickering in her chest. "What do we do?" "We start over," he said. "Not from scratch, but from here. It's not going to be easy." It was. The months that followed were a slow, painful dance of rebuilding trust. Alina never saw Luca again. His photos ran in the magazine, but her face was absent from the spread. She and Daniel worked side by side, their conversations tentative at first, then deeper, rawer. They unearthed old wounds, laid them bare, and stitched them up together. One evening, a year later, they sat at the same oak table, a bottle of their best vintage between them. Daniel reached for her hand, his grip firm but gentle. "I love you," he said, and she knew he meant it, not the old, comfortable love, but something new, forged in fire. "I love you too," she replied, and for the first time in a long time, she believed it. vineyard stretched out before them, a testament to their resilience. Aliner's infidelity had nearly destroyed them, but it had also cracked open a door to something stronger. They weren't the same people they'd been. They were better.